Once upon a time, in a lush and vibrant forest, there lived a timid and small squirrel named Sammy. Sammy was known throughout the forest as the bravest squirrel anyone had ever seen, and his courage was legendary among the animal kingdom. One sunny morning, as the forest animals gathered near the great oak tree, they noticed a strange and unsettling sight. A fierce and menacing fox had come to visit their peaceful forest. The animals were terrified, for they knew that the fox was cunning and sly, and he might bring harm to their beloved home. The animals huddled together, their hearts pounding with fear. They desperately needed someone to confront the fox, to protect their homes and families. But who would dare to stand up to such a fearsome creature? As the forest creatures discussed their predicament, Sammy's tiny heart was filled with a strange mixture of fear and determination. He knew that he was not the biggest or the strongest in the forest, but he also knew that someone had to do something to protect their home. Gathering all the courage he could muster, Sammy stepped forward and said, "I will talk to the fox and ask him to leave peacefully." The other animals gasped in astonishment. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. Sammy, the smallest and most timid of them all, was volunteering to confront the mighty fox. But they also knew that there was something special about Sammy, something that made him braver than anyone else. So, Sammy set off towards the fox's den, his heart pounding in his chest. The forest was eerily silent as he approached the den. With each step, he felt his fear grow, but he also knew that he had to be strong for the sake of his friends. When Sammy reached the fox's den, he saw the menacing creature lounging in the sun. The fox looked up and grinned, revealing sharp teeth that glinted in the sunlight. Well, what do we have here?" the fox sneered. Sammy gulped but stood his ground. "I've come to ask you to leave our forest. This is our home, and we don't want any trouble." The fox chuckled, a cruel sound that sent shivers down Sammy's spine. "Why should I leave?" the fox asked. "This forest has plenty of food, and I'm hungry." Sammy took a deep breath and spoke from his heart. "If you stay, you'll not only harm us but also disrupt the balance of nature. We all have a role to play in this forest, and we can live together peacefully if you choose to leave." The fox looked thoughtful for a moment, and Sammy's heart soared with hope. But then, the fox's eyes narrowed, and he said, "I'm not going anywhere, little squirrel. This is a big forest, and there's room for me too." Sammy realized that his words alone might not be enough to convince the fox. He needed a plan. "So," he said, "if you won't leave, at least promise not to harm any of the other animals. We can share the forest, but we must live in harmony." The fox considered Sammy's proposal for a moment, and then he nodded in agreement. "Fine, I won't harm the other animals. But only because you were brave enough to come and talk to me. Remember, though, I can change my mind." Sammy smiled, relieved that the fox had agreed to his terms. He knew that it would take time for the other animals to trust the fox, but it was a step in the right direction. With newfound courage, he returned to the forest and shared the news with his friends. The other animals were amazed by Sammy's bravery and the way he had negotiated with the fox. They realized that sometimes, it's not the size or strength that matters most, but the courage to stand up for what is right. As time passed, the fox kept his promise and didn't harm the other animals. Slowly but surely, trust began to grow between the forest creatures and the once feared fox. They learned to coexist peacefully, and the forest thrived as a result. The moral of the story is that bravery comes in all shapes and sizes. Sammy, the smallest squirrel in the forest, showed that even the most timid among us can make a big difference when they stand up for what is right. It's not about how strong or powerful you are, but about the courage to face your fears and work towards a peaceful solution. And when you approach others with kindness and understanding, you can change even the fiercest of foes into friends.